I'm Grace Morgan, 32. After 10 years of grueling sacrifice, I saved $390,000 for my dream home. But my parents drained it all, smirking, "It's for your brother's future." Their faces paled when I revealed my secret move. Last month, I thought I was finally stepping into my dream, buying my first home after 10 years of relentless saving, discipline, and sacrifice. I had managed to save $390,000. 10 years of working multiple jobs, living in a cramped apartment, giving up almost everything for this one goal. But then, out of nowhere, I discovered my parents had emptied my entire savings account. When I confronted them, my father looked at me with a cold smile and said, "Thanks for your naivety. Your money has now secured your brother's bright future." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. If you're wondering how it all began, let me take you back to the start. Before we dive deeper, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. This is going to be a wild journey of betrayal and unexpected triumph. I grew up in Boston with my parents Diane and Richard Harper. Life with them was far from easy. From the earliest days I can remember, my parents had total control over everything in my life. My clothes, my friends, my hobbies, even the books I was allowed to read. Nothing in our large colonial home ever really felt like it belonged to me. Privacy was a word that simply didn't exist. My mother, a marketing executive, would say she was only looking out for my best interests even as she stripped away every bit of independence I tried to claim. Parenting was just another project for her, managed with cold, clinical precision. My father was a financial advisor, known for his aggressive investment tactics, and he ran the family finances with an iron grip. Whenever I asked about money savings or allowance, he'd brush me off, saying, "Money isn't something for children to worry about." Meanwhile, he kept a meticulous record of every penny I spent, jotting it down in a little black notebook hidden away in his desk drawer. What hurt most was the stark contrast in how they treated my younger brother, Tyler. He's 4 years younger than me, and it was clear to everyone that he could do no wrong. His room was his sanctuary, his choices rarely questioned. My parents happily funded his expensive hobbies, from high-end gaming gear to competitive travel soccer leagues. When he wrecked his first car at 17, they didn't even blink before buying him a newer, better one. No lectures. "Boys will be boys," my mother would say with a shrug. Meanwhile, I got a 2-hour lecture for coming home just 15 minutes past curfew. Maybe their favoritism toward Tyler is what pushed me to gain financial independence so early. At 16, I got my first job at a local coffee shop, secretly hiding tips inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf. By 18, I had saved enough money to pay for my first semester at community college, which I attended while working full-time. When I moved out at 19, with my modest savings and thrift store furniture, to a shared apartment 30 minutes away, my parents were furious. "You're making a terrible mistake," my father warned. "You'll be back within 6 months." But I didn't go back. Instead, I thrived. I transferred to a 4-year college on a partial scholarship, majoring in computer science. By 22, I had landed an entry-level job at a small tech company. And by 25, I had worked my way up to a senior developer position. My saving strategy was strict. 30% of every paycheck went into a high-yield savings account. I lived with roommates, drove a 15-year-old car, cooked meals at home, and bought clothes second-hand. Every bonus, every tax refund, every payment from side gigs went straight into savings. I tracked every dollar with spreadsheets, projecting exactly when I would reach my goal, $400,000 for a house, down payment, and emergency fund. Through all this, my relationship with my parents was strained, but civil. I visited on major holidays, called once a week, and deflected their probing questions about my finances with a simple, "I'm doing fine." 3 years ago, I met Jessica at a tech conference. She was brilliant, funny, and understood my drive for independence without me needing to explain. After dating for a year, we moved in together, which cut my living expenses and sped up my savings plan. Jessica was the one who encouraged me to start house hunting 6 months ago, even though I was $10,000 short of my target. "Real estate isn't getting cheaper," she said. "And interest rates are still reasonable. It makes sense to start looking now." We spent weekends touring open houses, refining our wish list. 3 bedrooms, a home office, a decent kitchen, a small yard, And, most importantly, a location that wouldn't mean a soul-crushing commute for either of us. When we found the perfect house, a quiet neighborhood just outside the city, I knew it was the one. A 3-bedroom craftsman with original woodwork and an updated kitchen, listed at $385,000, almost exactly matching my savings. We could put an office in the smallest bedroom, Jessica said during our second visit, wandering through sunlit rooms. And the backyard is big enough for that garden you always wanted. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to imagine a future that felt truly mine, a home no one could control or take away, a foundation for the life I had been working toward for a decade. As expected, my parents were less than thrilled. Home ownership is a trap at your age, my father said during a Sunday phone call. You'll be tied down with maintenance and property taxes when you should focus on your career. My mother added, You're still so young. Plenty of time to settle down later. Their reaction was predictable, so I kept the house and my plans to make an offer to myself. But then, at the next family dinner, my father casually mentioned the beautiful oak cabinets in the kitchen of the house I was considering. I hadn't told them about the oak cabinets. How do you know about that? I asked. Fork paused halfway to my mouth. He looked flustered for a moment, then recovered. You must have mentioned it during our last call. I knew I hadn't. Maybe Jessica mentioned it to them separately. Looking back, that should have been my first warning, the first sign something was wrong. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't recognize. Account access confirmed from a new device. I hadn't opened my banking app that day. I logged in immediately through my secure browser and checked my recent activity. Everything looked normal, no unauthorized transactions. Still, the alert bothered me, so I called the bank's customer service line. We see a login from a new IP address at 2:15 p.m. today, the representative said, after verifying my identity. It appears to be from within your state. Would you like us to lock your account and issue new credentials? Since my balance and transaction history looked fine, I opted to change my password instead, thinking maybe I'd logged in from work and forgotten. But the uneasy feeling didn't go away. 2 days later, it happened again. This time, I got an email notification about a successful login from an unrecognized device. I called the bank again, and this time I spoke with a security specialist named Marcus. Miss Harper, I'm showing multiple access points to your account over the past week, he explained after reviewing my records. Some appear to be from mobile devices not registered to your profile. Is anything missing? My heart raced. Has anyone transferred money out? I asked. I don't see unauthorized transfers yet, but there have been several inquiries about wire transfer procedures, Marcus replied. Would you like me to place a temporary freeze on your account while we investigate further? I agreed immediately, setting up extra security measures, including a verbal confirmation for any transfers over $1,000 by Ray. Marcus assured me they'd monitor the account closely and suggested I run a security scan on all my devices. That evening, I did just that, starting with my phone, then my laptop. Nothing unusual appeared until I ran a deep scan on my personal computer, the one I'd had for about 3 years and used mostly for finances and personal projects. The scan found an unfamiliar program running quietly in the background, something that didn't show up in my regular programs list. After some research and a call to a tech-savvy friend, I learned it was a sophisticated tracking software, one that records keystrokes, takes screenshots, and basically watches everything I do on my computer. My blood ran cold. I tried to figure out when and how it was installed. Then I remembered. About 4 months ago, my laptop had been running slow. During a visit to my parents' house, my father offered to clean it up for me. I'll run some diagnostics and optimization programs, he said, taking my computer into his home office for several hours. Now, looking back, I realized that was the moment everything changed, the moment my parents crossed the line from control into betrayal. But I'm not done yet. This is only the beginning. And through all of it, I'm fighting to reclaim my future. You know, I do this kind of thing for clients all the time, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. That evening, he returned my laptop, noticeably faster and working perfectly, just like new. I thanked him, completely unaware that he had used the chance to install spyware. A creeping sense of dread settled in when I realised what this meant. Me parents had potentially been spying on my financial life for months. Every online banking session, every search for houses, every email about mortgage pre-approval, even private conversations with Jessica about our future, they had access to all of it. My hands trembled as I logged into my main savings account on Jessica's tablet, bypassing the temporary freeze with a phone verification. The balance read 0. Where there should have been $390,000 in years of sacrifice and careful saving, there was nothing. Panic overtook me as I frantically checked my transaction history. A wire transfer had been completed the day before, sending the entire balance to an account I didn't recognize. The room spun as Jessica rushed over, alarmed by the strangled sound. I made something between a gasp and a scream. "Emily, what's wrong?" she asked, gripping my shoulders while I stared blankly at the screen. "It's gone," I whispered. "Everything, 10 years of savings, the house, our future, it's all gone." Jessica grabbed the tablet and scanned the details quickly. "This has to be fraud," she said firmly. "We'll call the bank right now and report it. They can reverse wire transfers if we act fast." But as I steadied myself and studied the transfer details more closely, a cold wave of realization hit me. The receiving account holder's name was unmistakable. Richard Harper, me father. "It's not fraud," I said quietly. "It's my parents." I tried calling them immediately, but there was no answer. Text went unread. I even emailed both their personal and work accounts with the subject line, "Emergency, please contact me." No response. By morning, after a sleepless night pacing our apartment, I had left 6 voicemails and sent countless messages. The silence was deafening, and in that silence my shock hardened into a steely resolve. "I'm going over there," I told Jessica as I grabbed my car keys. "I'm coming with you," she said, reaching for her jacket. I shook my head. "I need to do this alone, but I'll call you if I need backup." Obsec. As I drove the 40 minutes to my parents' suburban home, my mind raced through possible explanations, each one more unlikely than the last. Maybe it was a terrible mistake. Maybe they were trying to protect the money somehow. Could it be a misguided surprise, transferring it to a better investment? But the tracking software on my computer told a different story. This was calculated, deliberate betrayal so deep I struggled to comprehend it. The familiar tree-lined street where I grew up looked exactly as it always had: neatly trimmed hedges, freshly mulched flower beds, the American flag waving gently from the front porch. Everything was in its place, just as my parents liked it. I parked behind my father's luxury sedan and sat for a moment, gathering my courage. Then I walked up the brick path and rang the doorbell, though I had a key somewhere in my apartment. My mother answered, her expression shifting from surprise to carefully neutral when she saw me. "Emily," she said, stepping back to let me in. "This is unexpected. We usually do Sunday dinners, not Tuesday drop-ins." "Is Dad home?" I asked, skipping pleasantries. "In his study. Is everything all right?" I didn't answer, walking past her toward my father's home office. He looked up from his computer as I entered, removing his reading glasses. "Emily," he said with a bland smile, "what brings you here on a weekday?" I closed the door behind me, suddenly aware of a calm that went beyond anger or shocker, crystalline clarity forming in my chest. "I know what you did," I said simply. My father's face didn't change. "You'll need to be more specific. $390,000 transferred yesterday from my savings to your account, and the tracking software you installed on my laptop when you supposedly fixed it. A flicker passed over his fascinot guilt. Exactly, but surprised that I had discovered everything so quickly. Then he settled into firm resolve. "Sit down, Emily," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk, the same chair where I had sat through countless childhood lectures. I remained standing. "Where is my money?" I demanded. My mother entered quietly then, closing the door softly behind her. "Richard," she said. "She knows. Of course she knows." He nodded. "Sooner than we expected, but it doesn't change anything." He turned back to me. "The money is safe. We made a family decision about its best use." "A family decision?" I repeated incredulously. "You made a decision about my money I saved for 10 years without even talking to me. That's not a family decision. That's theft." Don't be dramatic, my mother cut in sharply. We're your parents. We've always known what's best for you, even when you couldn't see it yourself. I'm 29 years old, I said. I have a successful career, a relationship, and until yesterday, a plan to buy a house. You had no right to interfere. My father stood, his height still imposing, despite my adulthood. We had every right. You were about to make a terrible financial mistake teeing up all your liquid assets in an overpriced property in a market about to crash. We protected you from yourself by taking control. My voice rose despite my effort to remain calm. By reallocating family resources where they'll do the most good, he corrected. Your brother was accepted to an elite business school, and he has a startup that needs capital. His education and business will benefit this family for generations. Just then, the front door opened and closed. Moments later, my brother Tyler appeared in the study doorway, looking confused. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing between us. "Nothing that concerns you," my mother said quickly. "Actually," I said, turning to him, "they stole my entire savings account to give to you. $390,000 I saved for 10 years to buy a house. Apparently, your education and business idea are more important than my future." Tyler's eyes widened. "What? That can't be right." He looked at our parents. "Tell me that's not true." My father's expression hardened. "Emily is being selfish, as usual. We made a decision that benefits the whole family." By stealing her money?" Tyler asked incredulously. "It's not stealing when it's for your child's own good," my mother insisted. "Emily was about to waste all that money on a house she doesn't need at her age. Your future is more promising." Tyler looked horrified. "I never asked for that. I would never want her money taken from me." My father waved dismissively. "You'll understand when you're older. Sometimes parents have to make tough decisions." He turned to me, his expression smug. "Thanks for your naivety. Your money has secured your brother's bright future." Then, to everyone's surprise, including my own, I started laughing. Not a small chuckle, but full-bodied laughter that bent me double. My parents exchanged worried looks. "Emily," my mother said cautiously, "are you all right?" I straightened, wiping tears from my eyes. "I'm better than all right. I'm fantastic, because you didn't get what you think you got." My father frowned. "What do you mean?" $390,000 was my total savings, I explained, still smiling. "But last week, after getting pre-approved for a mortgage, I moved $351,000 to a separate secure account at a different bank you didn't know about. The account you emptied only had $39,000. The colour drained from my father's face. "That's not possible. We monitored your main account. You never made large transfers." "No, I didn't," I said firmly. "Because after noticing strange activity, I went to the bank in person and arranged for a banker to help me transfer the funds, physically no digital trail. I was planning to surprise Jessica with the good news that we could finally make an offer on the house with extra money for renovations." My mother sank heavily into a chair, her face pale and strained. "You're lying," she accused, her voice trembling. I looked her square in the eye and replied firmly, "Call the bank if you don't believe me. But be careful, I'm not sure you want to draw more attention to what you've done." Tyler moved quietly to stand beside me, his tone resolute. "I want no part of this," he said. "Whatever they took from you, I don't want it, and I will help you get it back." My father's shock quickly twisted into anger. "Ungrateful children," he spat. "After everything we've done for you." My voice stayed steady as I responded. "What you've done isn't parenting, it's fraud and theft. You installed spyware on my computer without my knowledge or consent. Then you used that information to access my bank account without authorization. You transferred funds that did not belong to you. That's criminal behavior." My mother's voice wavered. "You wouldn't press charges against your own parents," she said, but I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. "Watch me," I said coldly. I turned to leave but paused at the door. "You have 24 hours to return my $39,000. After that, I'm going to the police with evidence of everything you've done." As Tyler and I left, our parents were stunned, frozen in the study. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a burden I hadn't realized I carried my entire life. The 24-hour deadline came and went. No money returned. No communication. True to my word, the next morning I filed a police report. I brought bank statements, screenshots of the unauthorized wire transfer, and proof of the spyware installed on my computer. Detective Kimberly Walsh listened carefully, her expression growing more serious. "Unfortunately, cases like this are more common than you might think," she said. "Family financial exploitation happens a lot. Your parents' methods were unusually sophisticated, but we'll investigate. I also recommend consulting an attorney who specializes in financial crimes. Criminal charges are one route, but civil action might be your best option to recover your money quickly." A colleague referred me to Sarah Williams, an attorney experienced in parental financial abuse cases. Her office was small but professional. She listened intently as I told my story. "First," she said, "we'll file an emergency injunction to freeze the funds they took so they can't spend or hide them. Then we'll proceed with civil claims to recover your money plus damages, while working with the police on possible criminal charges." Sarah moved swiftly. By the end of the week, a judge granted the injunction to freeze my parents' accounts holding my money. The formal complaint included charges of theft, fraud, unauthorized computer access, and invasion of privacy. My parents' response was predictable. They hired Bradford Montgomery, a top-tier attorney known for defending wealthy clients in complex financial disputes. Their official response denied wrongdoing and justified their actions as parental concern and fiduciary duty. More shockingly, they countersued, claiming I had borrowed money from them as an adult with a verbal repayment agreement, and that the $39,000 was simply collection of this alleged debt. When Sarah showed me their filing, I was stunned. "That's completely fabricated," I told her. "I've never borrowed money from them as an adult. I've been financially independent since I was 19. "I believe you," Sarah assured me, "but we need evidence to refute their claims. Bank records showing your income and expenses, testimonials from friends or colleagues who can attest to your financial independence, anything to contradict their story." The case drew public attention. Local news ran a story on modern digital privacy issues, not naming us but clearly referencing our situation. Messages flooded my inbox. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives expressing shock, support, and in some cases criticism for taking legal action against my own parents. The most painful messages came from my Aunt Lauren, my mother's sister, who had always been kind. "Family matters should stay within the family," she wrote. "Your parents may have made a mistake, but dragging them through court will destroy any chance of reconciliation. Is that what you want?" What I wanted, I realized, was something she couldn't understand. Accountability. For once in my life, I wanted my parents to face the consequences of their controlling and deceitful behavior, not be allowed to rewrite reality to suit their desires. Jessica was my rock throughout this ordeal. She took days off work to attend meetings with Sarah, organized our growing file of evidence, and held me through the nights when the hurt and stress overwhelmed me. "You're doing the right thing," she whispered as I cried on her shoulder. "Standing up for yourself doesn't make you a bad daughter. They broke your trust in the most fundamental way." Tyler, too, surprised me with unwavering support. Despite pressure from our parents and extended family, he provided a written statement confirming he never asked for or wanted my money, and he detailed the pattern of favoritism and control he had witnessed growing up. "I always felt guilty about how differently they treated us," he confessed during a lunch with Sarah and me, "but I never imagined they'd go this far. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner." The hardest moment in the legal process was the deposition, sitting across from my parents and their attorney, answering hours of questions. They seemed smaller somehow. My mother's perfect appearance cracked by stress. My father's confident posture diminished. Their attorney, Bradford Montgomery, tried repeatedly to paint me as ungrateful, financially irresponsible, vindictive. "Isn't it true," he pressed, peering over his glasses, "that your parents advised you against buying property at your age, showing financial wisdom you ignored?" "They expressed opinions," I answered carefully as Sarah coached me, "but opinions don't give them the right to access my bank account without permission or to install spyware on my computer. And isn't it true that your brother's education and business prospects are a better long-term investment than an overpriced house in a volatile market?" Sarah objected before I could answer. "Family resources implies joint ownership. The funds in question are solely my client's property earned through her employment and carefully saved over 10 years. Months passed. The emotional and financial toll grew. The house Jessica and I had fallen in love with was sold to another buyer. My parents started whisper campaigns among family friends, suggesting I had mental health issues that led to false accusations. At times, settling seemed tempting just to end the stress. But every time I considered it, I remembered my father's smug words, "Thanks for your naivety. Your money has secured your brother's bright future," as if my decade of hard work meant nothing. As if I existed only to further their favoured child's opportunities. So we pressed on. Sarah brought in digital forensics experts who testified about the sophisticated spyware installed on my computer, tracing its installation to the exact time my father had possession of my laptop. Bank records showed my consistent saving over 10 years, disproving my parents' fabricated debt claims. The court hearing was scheduled exactly 3 months after I discovered the theft. Despite my parents' attempts to delay, the judge denied their motions, citing the clear, straightforward evidence. As we prepared for court, Sarah received an unexpected call. Bradford Montgomery wanted to discuss settlement. My parents finally realized they might lose. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined, with worn wooden benches and harsh fluorescent lighting that felt out of place for the gravity of the day. I sat next to Sarah at the plaintiff's table, my back straight, despite the tension knotting my shoulders. Across the aisle, my parents sat with their attorney, avoiding my gaze. Judge Patricia Alvarez entered and proceedings began. Sarah's opening statement was clear and confident. She outlined the facts without emotion, but with undeniable strength. This case is about violation of privacy through unauthorized surveillance software, violation of financial autonomy through unauthorized account access, and most painfully, violation of the sacred trust between parent and child. Bradford Montgomery's opening painted a different picture. He portrayed my parents as caring mentors who tried to guide their impulsive daughter away from financial ruin. The Harpers possessed decades of financial expertise between them, he argued with calm assurance. They witnessed their daughter about to commit her entire savings to an overpriced property in a volatile market. Their actions, though perhaps overzealous, were driven by parental protection, not criminal intent. When my turn came to testify, I walked to the witness stand with legs that felt numb and shaky. After being sworn in, I briefly scanned the courtroom, locking eyes with Jessica's encouraging gaze from the gallery. "Miss Harper," Sarah began gently, "please tell the court about your financial history since reaching adulthood." I recounted my journey to independence. Multiple jobs, careful budgeting, systematic saving goals supported by financial records already submitted as evidence. I shared my dream of home ownership and the sense of security it represented for me. "When did you first suspect something was wrong with your account?" Sarah prompted. I detailed the strange notifications, the discovery of spyware on my computer, and the devastating moment I realized my entire savings had vanished transferred to an account in my father's name. "Did you ever give your parents permission to access your financial accounts?" "No, never." "Did you agree that your savings should be redirected toward your brother's education or business ventures?" "Absolutely not." "And how has this incident affected you, Miss Harper?" I paused, gathering my thoughts. Beyond the obvious financial loss, it shattered my sense of security. The two people who were supposed to protect me instead betrayed my trust in the most intimate way, monitoring my private communications and taking what I had worked so hard to build. There are moments I still cannot believe this is real. Bradford Montgomery's cross-examination was aggressive, as expected. He questioned my financial knowledge compared to my father's expertise, implying that my decision to buy a house was emotionally driven rather than financially sound. He even suggested my parents had discussed their concerns with me multiple times, and I had stubbornly refused to listen. "No," I corrected firmly. "They expressed opinions about my house hunting." "Yes, but at no point did they say, 'We're considering taking your money for your brother instead.' That conversation never happened." The digital forensics expert who examined my computer was next, methodically explaining how the spyware worked when it was installed and the extent of surveillance it enabled. "This software captures keystrokes, including passwords," she explained to the visibly disturbed judge. "It takes periodic screenshots without the user's knowledge and uploads them to a remote server. It can even activate the computer's camera and microphone remotely. This is not consumer-grade parental monitoring software, but sophisticated surveillance technology typically used in corporate espionage or by private investigators. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat as she detailed the exact date and time the software was installed, matching precisely when he had taken my laptop to fix it. Perhaps the most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source. The bank manager who helped me transfer the majority of my savings to a secure account took the stand, confirming that I had come to the bank in person, expressed concerns about unusual account activity, and asked for assistance in protecting my assets. Miss Harper specifically mentioned feeling that someone might be monitoring her online banking activity, he recalled. She requested that we handle the transfer with no digital notification or electronic trail, which is unusual but not unprecedented when clients have security concerns. This testimony directly contradicted my parents' claim that I fabricated the story about transferring most of my money before they accessed my account. The real surprise came during my brother Tyler's testimony. I expected him to confirm his written statement about never asking for my money, but he went much further. My parents have always treated Emily and me differently, he stated clearly. Growing up, I received opportunities, trust, and resources she didn't know reason, except that I was their son, and she was their daughter. A murmur ran through the courtroom as he continued. When I learned what they had done with Emily's money, supposedly for my benefit, I was horrified, but not entirely surprised. This fits a pattern of control they've maintained over her for as long as I can remember. Then, voice steady, he revealed something I hadn't known. After Emily discovered what happened, our parents approached me with $50,000 to start my business immediately, saying it was my portion of a family investment. When I refused and said I would support Emily in court if necessary, they threatened to withdraw funding for my education entirely. My mother made a small sound from her seat, and my father's face flushed dark red. "Tyler, that's enough," he said sharply, earning a quick reprimand from the judge about speaking out of turn. As the first day of proceedings ended, Sarah looked cautiously optimistic. "The judge seems troubled by the evidence," she whispered as we gathered our things, particularly the sophisticated nature of the spyware and your brother's testimony. The second day brought an unexpected development. Before proceedings began, Bradford Montgomery requested a brief recess to speak with his clients. When court resumed 30 minutes later, he approached the bench. "Your Honour, my clients would like to propose a settlement." The terms were straightforward. Full return of the $39,000 plus $20,000 in damages to cover legal fees and emotional distress. In exchange, I would drop all claims and agree not to pursue criminal charges. Judge Alvarez turned to me. "Miss Harper, are these terms acceptable to you?" I looked at my parents. Really looked at them perhaps for the first time in my adult life. My mother's perfect posture. My father's confident facade. Both now showing cracks under pressure. They had monitored my most private communications, violated my trust, taken what wasn't their soul while believing they were entitled to control my life, even as an adult. "No, Your Honour," I said clearly. "Those terms are not acceptable." "Bad." Montgomery looked stunned. Sarah leaned close, whispering urgently, "Emily, this is a reasonable offer. We should consider it." "I've spent my entire life being reasonable while they've been controlling," I replied quietly. "I want the court to decide." And so, the proceedings continued. Financial records from my parents' accounts revealed something I hadn't known. They had been under significant financial pressure themselves. My father's investment firm lost several major clients in the past year. Their mortgage was underwater after a poorly timed refinance. Tyler's elite business school tuition was beyond what they could comfortably afford. They had taken my money not only out of a desire to control me or favour my brother, but out of desperation to maintain appearances and expectations they could no longer support. This revelation didn't excuse their actions, but provided context that helped me understand the frantic violation of boundaries. They were drowning and saw my savings as a life raft, justifying the theft through a lifetime of paternalistic control. In her closing argument, Sarah emphasized the deliberate nature of my parents' actions. "This was no momentary lapse in judgment," she stated firmly. "It was a calculated series of invasions executed over months, culminating in the theft of my life savings. The court must send a clear message. Family ties do not exempt anyone from basic legal and ethical boundaries." Bradford Montgomery's closing was more subdued than his opening, focusing mainly on my parents' previously unblemished reputation and their sincere belief they acted in the family's best interest. Judge Alvarez took a day to consider her ruling. When we returned, the tension was palpable. In the case of Harper versus Harper, she began sternly, "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff." The defendant's actions constitute clear violations of multiple statutes regarding privacy, unauthorized computer access, and financial fraud. She ordered my parents to return the full $39,000 plus $50 in punitive damages and granted a permanent injunction barring them from any contact with my financial institutions or electronic devices. While acknowledging the special relationship between parents and children, she looked directly at them and added that relationship does not confer ownership or control of an adult child's assets. Miss Harper has demonstrated admirable financial responsibility and independence. The paternalistic overreach demonstrated by the defendants is especially troubling given the sophisticated methods employed. As a final point, she announced that the case would be referred to the District Attorney's Office for possible criminal charges, though the decision to prosecute would ultimately be theirs to make. My parents sat frozen as the ruling was read aloud, my father's face drained of colour, my mother's eyes cast downward. They hadn't just lost the case. They had lost the carefully crafted story they told themselves, and others the story about their actions, their parenting, and their financial security. Walking out of the courtroom, Tyler caught up with me in the hallway. "Are you okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. I thought about it deeply. "Not yet," I answered honestly. "But I will be." The weeks after the ruling brought a mix of practical challenges and emotional turmoil. My parents complied quickly with the financial judgment, probably hoping to avoid the risk of criminal prosecution. In the end, the district attorney chose not to press charges, noting their clean records and the fact that full financial restitution had already been made. With the return of my $39,000 plus an additional $50,000 in damages, I had even more than the savings goal I'd originally set. Jessica and I resumed house hunting, though the market had shifted a bit during the drawn-out legal process. "What about this one?" Jessica asked one Saturday morning, tablet propped on her knees as she scrolled through listings in bed. It was a 4-bedroom house with a renovated kitchen, about 10 minutes farther from downtown than we'd hoped. The house was stunning, slightly bigger than our original target, with a wraparound porch and an established garden. The price was well within our new budget, especially now. "It's perfect," I said, excitement fluttering in my chest, replacing months of anxiety. "Let's see it today." 2 weeks later, our offer was accepted. Signing the mountain of closing paperwork felt surreal-like stepping into a new life. Despite the betrayal, the legal battle, and the public exposure, I had finally achieved what I'd worked toward for 10 years. "Congratulations, homeowners," the real estate agent said, handing us the keys with a flourish. That night, Jessica and I sat on the bare floor of our new living room, sharing takeout and champagne under the soft glow of a single-floor lamp we'd brought from our apartment. "To new beginnings," Jessica toasted, her glass clinking gently against mine. "And to hard lessons learned," I added quietly. The emotional aftermath was more complicated than the practical matters. I established firm boundaries with my parents, no unannounced visits to our home, and no discussions about my finances ever again. Our contact became limited to brief civil exchanges at family gatherings, which I attended mainly to maintain my relationship with Tyler. My brother had moved out of our parents' house shortly after the court case, renting a small apartment near his university. He was pursuing a business degree, relying on student loans and part-time jobs instead of parental funding. "It's harder this way," he admitted when he helped us paint the new living room, "but it feels more honest, like I'm building something that's truly mine." I understood completely. My parents made several attempts at reconciliation, each revealing how little they'd truly changed. My mother sent an elaborate housewarming gift with a card that read, "We hope you'll now see that everything worked out for the best in the end." My father called on my birthday with an investment opportunity he thought would be perfect for the settlement money, proving once again that he hadn't learned to respect my financial independence. Each time, I politely but firmly reinforced my boundaries, refusing to be drawn into their preferred narrative that the whole ordeal was just an unfortunate misunderstanding, now happily resolved. They still don't get it, I told my therapist, Dr. Andrea Reeves, during one of our weekly sessions. I'd started therapy shortly after the court case, realizing that legal resolution hadn't healed the emotional wounds. They saw the house, the money, the outcome, but they didn't see the damage they'd caused. Trust once broken is incredibly difficult to rebuild, Dr. Reeves agreed, especially when the person who broke it doesn't fully acknowledge the harm. Your parents may never truly understand the impact of their actions. Your healing can't depend on their recognition. That was perhaps the hardest lesson, accepting that my parents might never genuinely understand or apologize for what they had done. My choice was to either keep hoping for validation that might never come, or to build my life and healing independently of their acknowledgement. I chose the latter. Jessica and I built our home together, filling it with furniture we loved, painting walls in colours that made us happy, gradually transforming the space into a sanctuary that was entirely ours. We created traditions and rhythms that had nothing to do with my family of origin. The professional consequences of the case surprised me. Though I worried about embarrassment or career damage from the public court proceedings, the opposite happened. My story resonated with many people, especially young professionals dealing with complicated family financial dynamics. 6 months after the case, at a tech conference, a senior developer from a major cybersecurity firm approached me. "Your experience is unfortunately common," she said over coffee. "The technical aspects of your case, combined with your background in development, make you uniquely qualified to understand both the emotional and technical sides of privacy violations. We have an opening on our family security team if you're interested." The position came with a significant salary increase and the chance to build tools designed to protect others from the kind of surveillance I'd endured. After careful thought, I accepted, finding unexpected purpose in turning my painful experience into a way to protect others. Jessica's career was thriving too. Her design consultancy had landed major clients, and she was thinking about bringing on a partner to handle the growing workload. Our professional success, combined with our new home, created a foundation of security that helped heal some of the wounds left by my parents. One crisp fall evening, as we sat on our porch swing watching children play across the street, Jessica pulled a small velvet box from her pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment," she said, voice unusually nervous. "I realized there might never be a perfect time, but this felt close. Inside the box was a simple, elegant ring. I know we've talked about marriage in the abstract," she continued, "but after everything we've been through this year, I'm more certain than ever you're who I want to build a life with. Will you marry me?" The joy flooding through me in that moment was pure, free from the shadows of the past year. "Yes," I said simply, letting her slide the ring onto my finger, then pulling her close for a kiss full of promises and possibilities. Tyler was the first person I called with the news. His genuine happiness for us was another small step in healing. He had become not just my brother, but my friend, a relationship rebuilt on healthier terms, free from our parents' manipulative dynamics. As our first holiday season in the new house approached, excitement mixed with apprehension. The question of whether to include my parents in the celebrations weighed heavily. "What do you want to do?" Jessica asked as we planned Thanksgiving. "It's completely your call." After much thought, I decided to host a small gathering with Tyler and a few close friends, but not my parents. Instead, I sent them a brief, civil card wishing them well for the holiday. It wasn't forgiveness not yet, but a conscious choice not to let their actions control my life or emotions anymore. I was building something new, something that honored the strength I found in standing up for myself, while leaving room for joy, connection, and even eventual healing. Preparing our first Thanksgiving dinner in our new home, surrounded by chosen family, I realized that despite everything, perhaps because of everything, I had found my way to exactly where I was meant to be. 1 year after the court ruling, my life had transformed in visible and invisible ways. Our house had become a true home, with a vegetable garden in the backyard and walls adorned with artwork and photographs. Jessica and I married in a small ceremony on our property, with Tyler as my person of honor and a handful of close friends as witnesses. My relationship with my parents remained limited but civil. We maintained what my therapist called structured contact, with clear boundaries and expectations. Holiday gatherings were held at neutral locations. Conversations stayed on safe topics. Any attempt to discuss finances or offer unwanted advice was met with polite but firm redirection. This was my new normal own I had created with intention, strength, and hope for a future shaped on my terms. I'm still working on forgiveness, I told Dr. Reeves during our now monthly sessions. Not for their benefit, but for mine. Carrying anger takes energy I'd rather direct elsewhere. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or allowing the same patterns to continue, she reminded me. It can simply mean accepting what happened and choosing to move forward without letting it control your present. That perspective helped me navigate the complex emotions that still occasionally surfaced. There were moments when a casual comment or familiar gesture from my mother would trigger a flash of the old hurt and betrayal, but those moments became less frequent, less intense, as I continued to build a life defined by my choices rather than their actions. Tyler had graduated and launched a modest but promising tech startup funded through a combination of small investors and a grant program for young entrepreneurs. He had made a point of establishing his business completely independent of our parents' financial input, despite their repeated offers of help. "I'm following your example," he told me over dinner at our house one evening, "building something that's truly mine." His progress in therapy was evident in the way he now established his own boundaries and pursued his own path without seeming torn by guilt or obligation. We had both learned that family connections, while important, weren't worth sacrificing our autonomy or self-respect. The most unexpected development of the year had been my growing involvement in financial education and digital security awareness. What had begun as a single guest lecture at a local community college, sharing my experience with identity protection students, had evolved into a regular speaking engagement and eventually a workshop series I developed called Digital Boundaries. The workshops combine practical skills for securing personal information with deeper discussions about setting and maintaining boundaries, particularly in family financial dynamics. I partnered with local domestic violence organizations, recognizing that financial control was often an overlooked aspect of abusive relationships. "Your story resonates because it's about more than just money or technology," my co-facilitator Marissa explained after a particularly impactful session. "It's about the fundamental right to independence, to build your own life on your own terms." Jessica's design business had grown enough that she had taken on 2 employees and moved to a small office space downtown. Her work brought beauty and function to spaces throughout our city. While my career in cybersecurity allowed me to create protection and peace of mind for vulnerable users. Together we had created not just a home, but a foundation for meaningful work that extended beyond our own experience, transforming pain into purpose in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark days. After discovering my parents' betrayal, my perspective on family had evolved significantly. I'd come to appreciate that biology offered no guarantees of healthy connection or mutual respect. The most meaningful relationships in my life were now built on choice, trust, and reciprocity rather than obligation or shared DNA. "Family is who sees you clearly and loves you anyway," Jessica said one evening as we hosted a dinner gathering that included Tyler, my closest work colleagues, and friends who had supported us through the legal battle and beyond. Looking around the table at these people who had chosen to show up for me, who had earned my trust and honored my boundaries, I knew she was right. This understanding didn't diminish the complexity of my feelings about my parents. I could acknowledge their formative role in my life, even some positive aspects of my upbringing, while still maintaining the boundaries necessary for my well-being. I could wish them well, without allowing them the opportunity to harm me again. On the anniversary of the court ruling, I received an unexpected email from my father. Unlike his previous attempts at communication, which had been defensive or minimizing, this message seemed different from the first line. "I've been doing some difficult reflection," he wrote. "While I still believe our intentions were to protect the family, I've come to recognize that our methods were deeply wrong. The privacy violation and taking your money without permission were inexcusable breaches of trust regardless of our motivations. I don't expect this acknowledgement to change anything between us." But after a year of therapy of my own, I felt it important to take responsibility for my actions without qualification. I read the message several times, sharing it with Jessica and discussing it in my next therapy session. It wasn't a magical resolution, not a Hollywood moment of tearful reconciliation, but it was perhaps the first genuine accountability my father had offered in my entire life. I responded briefly, thanking him for the acknowledgement without promising any change in our current arrangement. True repair, if it was ever possible, would require sustained change over time, not a single moment of insight. As I reflect on the journey from that devastating discovery to my life today, I'm struck by how a violation meant to control and diminish me instead catalyzed growth and independence beyond what I had previously imagined possible, the very qualities my parents tried to suppress. My determination and self-reliance ultimately protected me from the worst of their actions. The most valuable lesson I've learned is that true security comes not from controlling others or being controlled, but from building a life aligned with your own values, surrounded by relationships based on mutual respect and genuine care. Freedom isn't just financial, though that's certainly part of it. It's the ability to define your own path and set your own boundaries, even when, especially when those closest to you resist. If my story resonates with you in any way, I hope it offers some validation or courage for your own journey. The path to establishing healthy boundaries isn't always straight or easy, particularly with family, but it's worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to set challenging boundaries with loved ones? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story helped you feel less alone, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for being part of this community where we can grow stronger together.